Guten Abend, mein kleiner grüner Kaktus. Sie draußen am Balkon. Hello, Germany. Hello, everywhere else in the world. But we're speaking to a German friend tonight, and he's going to appear very, very soon when they let him out.
Hello, Chris. How are you doing, Chris? It's so nice to see what you look like, because we've been talking on emails and WhatsApp, and you always draw a picture of someone that you don't know what they look like, and you look absolutely nothing like I imagined. I mean, we've known about you for a few years, and we've been a bit of a fan of your work, and I was wondering possibly if you wanted to remain anonymous or something.
Who wouldn't? But enough of the home improvements. Let's talk about you lot. What was the first piece of music that knocked your socks off?
I seen a band rehearsing when I was about 8, and they were all rockabilly guys with the hairdo, you know, the quiff and stuff, and they were all dressed like zoot suits and whatever, and they were playing. That inspired me.
We said, who are you fellas, and where do you hang your hats? They said, we're 3 Georges, they call the alley cats. Hey, we're rocking and rolling with the real gone crazy beat.
Beatles came about, and my sister had the album Rubber Soul, and that album, Norwegian Wood for one, off of that album. I just loved it. The third thing that inspired me was there was cornflakes, that Frühstück box, and it had a photograph of a Burns Baldwin guitar, and you could win it by sending away the top of the box.
Brian, I dig your grooves, mate. Who influenced you?
One of my big heroes from a drumming point of view was Paul Thompson from Roxy Music.
Oh, yeah.
When Roxy Music were just kicking in, I was like, 14, 15 at the time, just still looking for heroes to pick, to follow and copy and whatever. And Paul Thompson was one of the first guys that I kind of latched onto. I was telling the guys, we were talking earlier on to someone else, about the Paul Thompson plays Love is a Drug with the snare drum, with the snares off. And it sounds like a timbale. I copied that for Theme for Great Cities and Today I Died Again and other tracks for Simple Minds, because I just thought it was an unusual sound to use as opposed to it just being the crack of a snare.
What's spinning at your place, Mick?
People like John Barry and kind of people that drew film tracks and created images always really inspired me more than actually I want to be a pop star or a rock star or any of the chart stuff. And even early days with the band, I used to pretend a lot that I liked stuff I'd never even heard in my life. Half these records with Van de Graaf Generator and Charlie and Jim rabbiting on about some... What?
Dead Fingers Talk and...
Any of that stuff, I was like... And I was too frightened to say, actually, I quite like Your Song by Elton John, it'd be like... It was just not on. I would still put my hand up and say, as far as songs go and to be part of something that that was amazing written. Lion Eyes would win me any day. You know, the Eagles, that straight song that was a great story, beautiful harmonies, and amazing arrangements. All that stuff still inspires me, as it always did. I've never actually, people say, oh, what about Vangelis or Rick Wakeman or keyboard? I've never found anybody, though I totally love them. I love Vangelis. And in fact, I've got the documentary on right now. I've never been drawn into want to be that person.
Eclectic musical proclivities abound. But would you say that krautrock was something of a common ground for the group?
Those were all influences for us at that particular time.
Yeah.
Sure, remember we used to play the La Dusseldorf album and all that, and that whole krautrock thing.
I've got two Neu albums here.
So should everybody.
If you are not familiar with Neu, come with Uncle and hear all prompts.
This is the first track of their debut album.
Slightly altered. Slightly altered.
Slightly altered.
Spontaneous creation through improvisation. Does it work?
Well, that's just the way we did it, Chris. We would just go around and someone would write something, be it basically a keyboard line, or Brian doing drums would inspire me, or Charlie would do a wee bit of guitar, and we would play, and towards the end of it we would jam for hours and then pick out parts that we thought, well, that's a good middle eight somewhere, or a good verse, or a good chorus, you know.
Jim would normally record it all in a ghetto blaster, and you could listen back to this and pick out something happened at 9 minutes and something happened about half an hour in or something like that. So it was kind of all kind of organised from being disorganised.
We weren't allowed a toilet break, so I'd be playing drums with one hand, just playing the groove, smoking a joint at the same time and passing it around, so we would just keep us going.
A bit like Mick Fleetwood then. Although the mines do not have an assistant to administer the requisite incapacitants.
Funny, I did a session with Mick Fleetwood, was the drummer in the band with Robin Zander, and exactly that happened, Chris. They had a roadie in the drum booth with them, and I could hear him coming in with a crate of 12 bottles of beer, and he wouldn't get through the whole set. He was drinking heavily at the time. You'd hear the
what kind of beer do you like?
And in the middle of the song, what was that noise? And it was him opening a bottle of beer in the middle of the drum take. Yeah, it was something else.
Did you hear it, Trisha? That wonderful double album Songs and Fascination? It's not a double album, sister. The blue one is a separate thing.
Papers, please. Brian's drumming is a masterclass in discipline and inventiveness.
Give us a clue.
Just focused, Chris. I just focused on the music. Didn't think it needed any fills. There was a lot of noise going on around about what I was doing. Derek was playing all over the place. Mick was filling gaps in as well. And I just thought, keep the groove. And I've always kind of stuck to that. I don't really like drum solos. I really don't like drum fills unless they're necessary. And I just think the music that we were doing, Derek covers loads of colours in the music as well. So bass and drums alone filled a lot of space in the music and left very little for the other guys to fill in. So I thought I'd just keep it steady and just hypnotic. It's almost like, I didn't realise what I was doing at the time, but a lot of people say it sounds like a bit like trance music.
I always remember when you did do a fill, it wasn't a normal fill. You never even touched a tom-tom usually. It was all digga, 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 straight like a machine snare drum.
Yeah,
and it was like, it was just so unusual. I mean, a lot of the stuff for those early records, drum wise, is really unique, Brian. You should
No click track
pride
either,
in it.
Chris.
No click.
I liked funky music, and I wasn't allowed to say I liked soul music when I was younger in the band, because you had to follow the party line and say that you liked Lou Reed and Iggy Pop and the Stooges and the Velvet Underground and stuff. And at that point in time, I was listening to Marvin Gaye and Barry White and Isaac Hayes and all the black artists and stuff, and that's where I was getting my motivation from. Music has got to have soul. It isn't something that you learn.
You got soul, and everybody knows that it's all right.
Chris, can I just quote you in front of the guys? This is what Chris wrote to Mick, and I read it, and I've never heard such an elaborate, intricate piece of text with regard to my work.
I'll shut up in a minute, but Brian is really a chameleon of the drums. Just within the mind's canon, there is so much variety. There is the Bonham-like heaviness of Capital City. Or film theme. Then there is the lateral thinking modern drummer of tracks such as 20th Century Promised Land,
Clean, sharp, and modern.
contrarian beats by a compositional drummer. And of course, there is the groove monster. Just listen to tracks such as Theme for Great Cities, Love Song, or This Fear of Gods. Brian makes them swing like a big band drummer, elegant, understated and punchy as Krupa. This guy is the real deal. Mick, you were one of 7 siblings in a musically inclined household. Please talk about your musical upbringing.
Well, see, unlike most young musicians, I was kind of forced into playing. I know that I didn't want to, know that I was reluctant to do it, but it was a kind of, you're getting the accordion, you're getting the drums, you're getting the bagpipes. We were allocated instruments. It wasn't against our will, I've got to say that. It was just something my mother was so keen that we'd learn properly from proper lessons and tutors, because they didn't have that opportunity. And because we were quite poor and she had to spend a lot of money in it, I couldn't give it up. With the guilt overwhelmed me to stop doing it because she'd spent the money on the lessons. So I wasn't even looking for influences to inspire me at all. I was just trying to get past the next competition and not make an arse of it.
Your talent for the aerophone landed you on national TV. This was way before you joined the mines. Into the limelight. How did that happen?
You know, by the time I got to high school, I'd made a big mistake and went on television when I was going into first year in school in a talent show. And at that time, there was only 2 TV stations in the country. Absolutely everybody saw this. And it lived with me right through all my school years. And I got quite badly burned by that.
Millie, your table is beautiful. Everything shines. Why, I can see myself in this place.
Why, George, she's right. Look, son.
Yeah, I don't get it. Isn't this every day, China?
Sure, I wash them the way you should.
And Brian mentioned there not towing the party line. My party line was really ridiculous. It was, I mean, the biggest collection of records in the house was Callum Kennedy, right? And I still think he's one of the best voices that ever lived in Scotland. Right?
See, that's like Der Heino.
He's got a velvet voice, and that's why he done so well in Russia. A lot of people don't realise he was massive in Russia.
Your second album, Reel to Reel Cacophony, is decidedly experimental. A land grab by working class chaps. Were you being willfully confrontational?
We didn't consciously do that, though, did we? We never.
Well,
changing things.
We wrote along with
It
the
was
stuff.
obvious
that
it
we
was
played.
happening. It was obvious
Yeah.
it was happening. It was obvious that I do remember Jim would try and influence. He'd bring down a selection of records or some stuff. And suddenly we'd be playing stuff in the van. We'd be playing stuff in the rehearsal place that I think he was hoping that we would pick up on.
Yeah.
And try and jam around that bit. Do you remember that?
I was listening to my own stuff in a Walkman.
No, I know that was the other thing I was going to tell Chris if he didn't know that, because a lot of the time Brian would be playing along with something. He's got in his headphones like Donna Summer or something like that, and that's why a lot of the fills just came in the middle of bloody nowhere, because he's playing along with something that's completely different from what we're all playing.
He's listening to fucking the radio.
There's a track called "You See the Trouble with Me" by Barry White, Chris. And the drummer is a brilliant drummer, and I copied the groove for Changeling.
Fully understand the buzz that you get from a live performance and doing a tour and gigging and the reaction and the interplay, and I totally understand all of it. At the bottom line, I would still prefer to be just creating something from scratch with some new bit of gear. When I was in the band with the guys, I was too frightened to open my mouth. I was really a frightened young guy in all the environments, even with the education that I got. Get this one right. Somebody comes up to you at the end of a gig and says, "Going to sign that for me?" Do you know what terrified me the most? What was coming next? "Can you write a personal message?" My spelling was so atrocious. I'd be worried that I was going to be writing, even spelling their name Barbara, like ridiculously stupidly. Yeah. I used to avoid all of that.
And now, sir, see all those people out there?
What is the plan, gentlemen?
One singer, one song.
I'll leave that up to you, Brian.
No, I wouldn't like to, but
we're kind of just drifting along here, and we're not totally rudderless, but we do have a destination in mind. It's just how we get there is really undetermined yet. It feels good. Whatever we're doing does feel good. I like the idea. I mean, you're picking up on the fact that we're actually just covering ourselves from 30, 40 years ago, and we're still trying to do. I don't know if you saw the little clip that we did with the traditional, with the bongo and the accordion. To me, it just felt like a kind of natural thing to throw that one in there. And I'm trying to remember how we actually got the initial Room track together. If it was it a John Peel radio show or something
It
like
was
that?
it was John Peel's session. No, it was John Peel's session. We had 5 minutes left to record what we wanted. So Jim, myself, I think Charlie and Mick probably was there as well, but you were there and all, Brian, at that point. But we got together and says, what have you got? Dan, what have you got? Mick, what have you got? And we just started to jam. And it took us about within a minute we had something, and then we just recorded it, and that's the way it turned out.
All I know. Life in rooms. You live in rooms. I know when to stay here. Get things done. Dayglow, Hippie Council Estate. One room.
Did we use that same track on the record? Did we just
No,
copy
we
it?
redid it, Mick. We redid it, but it was virtually identical. One of the biggest tracks now that the younger gig goers are loving, and I think it's more the goths, is the American. They just absolutely went spare. I played at King Tut's not long ago, and the whole place, we've got to the American, I played the American, the whole place just exploded. And I was like, what's happened here? Have you just turned the PA on? Whatever, but it was, they loved the song. It's a big cult hit now. So maybe we should look at that then, maybe do something with that.
It started a movement, a momentum, a beat.
Never before in America's history has the need for sound and experienced judgment been as essential to our national interests than at the present.
Come inside.
The mirror lies.
I can't stand social media, Chris. At the end of the day, when I was young, bands and anybody you looked up to you didn't get to know them. They were quite reclusive and enigmatic, and I like the idea of that. But nowadays, you can't afford to do that. You have to be in everybody's face on Instagram and on, all the social media platforms, and it's crazy.
I think you're best just to leave it and accept that if it makes you feel good, it's good. If you don't like it, then shut it off.
Well, there's the perfect example. We've been in bands for 30, 40 years, and this is us just starting to do interviews and talk in the public domain for the first time ever in our lives properly. So that shows you how we've kind of trying to embrace it as much as we can. Because
I think it's more, Brian, that we've just matured and you're no frightened to say the wrong thing, really.
Mick, if I was still in the position in a band situation and someone said, the Record Mirror wants to do an interview, I'd rather you did it than me. Still.
Yeah, no, me too. I know I'm the same. I would rather somebody else would do that. And I always used to think that about Jim, how he would step forward to do that. And I mean, then I was quite in awe at the fact that he could handle all that quite comfortably, even given the fact that the stammer, and he still managed to pull that job off really, really well. And there's a few, I don't know if you remember the one in Australia, Dan. It was Mike Ogletree was the drummer, because I remember do you remember that?
Countdown.
Countdown. Oh my God.
That was awful, wasn't it? It was awful.
And they had a big idiot board. I call it an idiot board because the letters are all written.
Aye.
And I'm staring at I foolishly smoked a bit of dope as well, which is a really bad idea. Because they're obviously gawking at this board and reading it really badly. And then Jim comes in and rattles it all off dead comfortably, like he's just thought about it.
Aye.
Like, shit, how'd you do that?
Aye. Well, he did it with practice because that was his. He wanted to do that, so he was good at it. Because when you keep doing something like that, it becomes falling off a log.
So doing the veal.
Aye.
Pug Mahone.
I'm here, Jock Acomsa. Really, Jock Niest. I'm studying Spanish at the moment as well, trying to get that back into me because I lived out there for 5 months, so I know a lot of phrases and whatever. But I know German quite well, but the Japanese as well was a lot easier because I mean, if you want a beer, you just go beer deska. Do you have beer? Beer kudasai. Very easy. It's just straight to the point.
Demo tapes. Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few of them floating about. I had tons of, I don't know, I've got tons, and I still do have a lot of stuff that I've not even touched on. A lot of the recordings that we did right at the very outset, it was me that did them. I had them in 4 tracks or cassettes or whatever, anything. Jim obviously had the Ghetto Blaster stuff, which we always used for references. And about, I think maybe 2006, 7 or something like that, I had a guy come in, take the lot and digitize it all. So I've got the whole thing all logged and registered. At the time, I tried to use some of it, and I got a legal letter from Simple Minds Management. It was actually Sandra Dodds at the time, saying you can't use this, you can't do this. And I'm like, well, I've got the tapes. I made the tapes. Oh, but you don't own them. The record companies paid for that. Blah blah. It gave me this really fucking hard time that pissed me right off. And I said to her, well, I'm just going to give these away. Oh, you can't do that either. I'm like, fuck, I'll throw them in a bin and somebody will find them. How's about that then? It really got to that sort of conversation that she was threatening me with, if these come to life, then I'm in trouble, because obviously it was me that gave them away. Anyway, I didn't give them away. I took them all, but I did intend for some of it to get leaked and some of it to go out there, because I was kind of tired, and I still am a wee bit actually, of the band making money out of every single element of it. It seemed like they would want to use these to put in with box sets and include demos of this, and it was always another element of how can we draw money from everything, and I've got a real problem with that at the moment.
It's the B-52's box set. It just came out. It was $120. That's not bad.
And that's one of the reasons, even when I see the band, and all due respect to them, and they're out there slogging away, and we benefit immensely. I know I benefit immensely from it, from them doing all that work. But when I see paying for a sound check and paying for a question at a sound check, paying for a signature and a question at a sound check, the VIP ticket, every element of it, it's this generating a cash flow. And it really kind of bugged the fuck out of me. And that was the same frame of mind I was in back then, when I wanted to just give all these tapes to the first guy that walked by. Hopefully it would be a Simple Minds fan, because hopefully he would distribute them to whoever the hell he liked. Ultimately, I got them and I didn't do anything with them initially, and I've still got a whole, about 11 folders full of stuff. And then I still gave them away to a guy in Canada a box that some guy had been doing. He was moving away, and this guy kind of talked me into it. I don't even know what the fuck happened to them. A guy showed up at my door. I'm kind of getting ready to move house, and I want to get everything in the fucking box. I gave everything away. I gave the gold records and everything away, just to clear the whole thing. So there's a whole box. Some guy somewhere in the Midwest of Canada has got all the demos of everything, the original cassettes. And I'm currently going through bits and bobs. Now, I've found a couple of wee bits that I do like, that I can't even remember what tracks they are, but they're obviously in the makings of tracks. There was a couple of things that have popped up, but I've not actually spent enough time to actually say that, all right, I think we could do something with this, or put a video clip to. I mean, something like yourself would be quite good to put some visuals to some of it.
Turning reality into a beautiful dream.
Fantastic.
Cheers.
All right. Best pal.
So now what? Will we ever get to hear those fabled tapes? Will the suits ever learn? Back to your room. See ya.